nice one. Come on, buddy. And you thought you were just playing with it, huh? Get up in here. Look at that fish, folks. That's what I'm talking about right there. And he took it. He ate that bait. I lost my bait. No. Beautiful fish. Canyon Lake bass right there. Let me tell you something. Look how fat and chunky those bass are. He's chunky as all get out. Not a giant fish to start with, but it's a start. Just right now got on Canyon Lake, and such a beautiful morning. Let me tell you, the breeze is blowing just enough to where you love doing the kind of fishing with a little tiny breeze like this on the water. When it's calm, it seems everything's dead. But you know, we've been out here drop shotting before and doing certain techniques, but today we're gonna do what it takes to catch some fish, obviously, but we just got started. I started out with just a Texas rig, and all the Texas rig is, for the folks of you at home that don't know, of course I'll have to put a new bait on, it's just a little bullet weight. I'm using a 3/8 ounce, put a little plastic bead on there so I can get that little clicking action down there. So they hear it coming over the rocks, gets a little clicking like a crawdad. I'm throwing a 2/0 hook, offset shank hook, and then what I'm throwing is the Arizona Custom Baits, and it's a little creature bait, and I'll tell you, it's working really good, and I'm gonna see what it takes to catch some fish out here today. I'm kind of excited about being able to catch these fish. If I can figure out what I did with my baits now. Here's that little bait we're talking about, and I'm gonna tell you, it's smaller and it's got a real thin design on it. So using a wide gap hook is a little tougher. I like it to make it a little more sleek looking. So that's why I'm throwing the 2/0. But what I like to do is make it weedless. So I'm gonna poke it in the head of the worm, right up to the bend. I'm gonna bring it up. This is a watermelon red flake. And then you can see where the hook's at. Perfect design for a 2/0 hook. Offset shank. The reason why you want that offset shank hook is to hold the plastic up there, so it doesn't keep constantly sliding down the hook. So that acts as a keeper. Let's talk about a few tricks that are a lot of fun when you're doing this kind of fishing. You know, they bring out these pretty baits and they're beautiful and it's a great color. I love that color. Sometimes, you know, the crawdads in here have a little orange tint to them on the pinchers. So what I like to do is you go get yourself, you can buy these at Bass Pro. It's just a little spike stick, just like this, okay? And it's got a garlic scent to it, which is fine. But all I'm doing is I'm taking the tips of the tail right here, and you can do this on all your worms. It doesn't have to be this particular one. It can be just a straight worm. And all I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put a little orange, not a lot. You don't wanna do the whole thing because a little goes a long way. And all I'm gonna do is take these and I'm gonna mark them up a little orange on the tail here, just on the tips, about 1/4 inch, okay? We'll mark that up, okay? There you go. Now there, let me pull this up and then, look how it adds a little bit of color to the bottom of the tail of the worm right there. Now in the water, it really, really looks good. It looks like the pinchers, like I say, off a crawdad. Now the other ticket is we all use a lot of sunblock, of course, because we're in the sun. You might have some on your hands, you might even be a smoker, but the bottom line is when in doubt, try a little scent. So I always like to have a little scent in the boat. If the fishing's a little tough and you're not getting bit as much, it's amazing how fast this stuff goes. I'm gonna spray it down here. You don't want it all over the carpet. And I'll spray that bait, put a little scent on it, and that goes a long way. Now we're ready to go. So now we got a few things working for us, okay? So far what we have is we have our Texas rig. We've modified it with a little bit of orange tip to it. The other thing we have going for us is you have your bead. What I love about that bead, you can go to glass beads, but because I am using tungsten weights, well, if you get really hung up, the thing is a lot of times you'll break those glass beads, so I use more of a plastic bead there that they make for this type of stuff. and you get that little click, 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 click down there, just a little noise. So as you're dragging it across, say you're not having a whole lot of noise down there, right there's your noise. So acts as a little crawdad coming across those rocks. So we'll throw this a little bit and see what we can't do. Now the other thing is, it's real important when you're Texas rigging, you can set the meat to them with the equipment that you're throwing, but we're gonna start with just the line. The line itself, I'm throwing a 17-pound test fluorocarbon line. I use the XPS line from Bass Pro Shops. It's an awesome stout line, okay? The other thing is I'm using a heavy action Taipan rod, and I love this rod, and we've talked about them before, but remember the guides have a wrapped guide system on them. So as you can see, the guides are wrapped around the pole there, and what's really cool is when the fish pulls, you're fighting the fish direct. If you notice that the tip of the guide up there on the tip is facing straight down, my reel's straight up and down, it's facing straight down. The purpose of the guides wrapping like that is, number one, you get a better fight with a fish, you don't have any rod pinching or twisting on you, because what ends up happening when I catch a fish or I set the hook on a fish and he's fighting and he's pulling, your rod, because of the wraparound guides, doesn't twist. A lot of rods start losing a lot of their ability. After a while they get weak from them twisting, because anytime you have the line going over top of the guide, the rod's got to kind of twist and flex. And this particular rod will just go straight down on you, and it'll stay just like that. It doesn't have any twist motion in it, so you're not twisting the fibers. Perfect outfit, and I'm using a Johnny Moore Signature Series reel, of course, 6.3 to 1. So we're good to go on this outfit, and it's a lot of fun to throw. Now you make sure when you get a worm rod, that you get something with a little backbone to it, of course, the heavy action, but you want a stout backbone. You want the butt to be back here, see where it's on my forearm, and I can actually get it underneath and have a lot of power. So that's very important to do too. So the whole outfit works out pretty good. This is only a 4-inch bait, but we're rigged for bear because we know what kind of fish are in this lake too. Some big fish in this lake. One of the biggest mistakes a lot of people make is throwing this bait way too fast. You let it fall to the bottom, and you want to count what we call count the rocks. Count the rocks on the bottom. When you're dragging this thing, you want to feel the bottom. Once it hits bottom, you just kind of want to pull it over the rocks. Remember, the fish are hanging out where those rocks are. Count the rocks. Make it look like a crawdad just trying to work its way over the rocks. If you're constantly 9 o'clock and 12 o'clock like this and you're yo-yoing the bait, it's tough to catch fish that way. You can do it when they're active, but it's better to crawl it across the bottom. Make it look like that crawdad. Got him. Got that one. Brought it off a rock and I felt him. Come on, baby. You ain't that big of a stud, but you're a good one. That's a good fish. Oh, that's a good fish. Yeah, that's a good Canyon Lake bass on a Texas rig. I knew if I dragged it over enough of them rocks, it's just a good standard bass. It's a nice one. Yeah, good old 2-pounder. We'll take him. In the dog days of summer, sometimes you just gotta slow down. Look at that beautiful fish. Hit it right over the rocks. I found a little area where this little sand beach right here, as it comes around, I'm just kind of tapping the rocks through there and bringing it across there. Now, something to think about that's really crazy is we started out on the main lake this morning. We're working our way back into the river. We've got a 4-degree difference. When you've got 82, 81 degrees out there, the water temperature, and then you come back in here and you start hitting the 70s, the fish should start getting a little more active back up in here. The water cooling down a little bit, we might start seeing a little bit more action. Tried top water a little bit. I tried that Rico, couldn't get bit on it, but just moving back in the river gives me a little bit more confidence with that water being a little bit cooler. Well, he's running out now. Ah, he's not too bad. Not too bad. There we go. Look at that. About 1.5 pound fish right there. You know what we did is we decided to get out of the sun a little bit and start finding some shade pockets. And that's one thing in the summertime that's really important, I think, is utilize that shade as much as you can, because if you don't, you might lose out. You know, a lot of people think that, you know, I mean, it could go back and forth, but fish don't have eyelids. They like the shade because they can't, you know, they don't have eyelids. I tend to think that they use it more for ambush areas, you know. If they were meant to have eyelids, they would have had eyelids. I've seen them in the sun spawning. I mean, if it was really a big deal over the shade thing versus the sun, I could see it. But I really think that they use it for ambushing prey, and they like that shade where they can come out of that shade. If you find little pockets where they hide in that shade, and then when something comes by, they reach out and get it. They hide in there. And so, plus, the temperature drops a lot. You can even tell when you come out of the sun versus us coming in, and it's the same thing for the fish. So I like to think that they use the shade to ambush prey, and I'll find those shade pockets throughout the year in the summertime. And it's one of my key deals too when I'm fishing, say, places like Lake Mead, fishing the US Open, is finding just, even if it's 6 inches of shade where they can get up under there and hide and then come out and ambush prey. It really can work to your benefit. So utilize that shade as the sun's coming up. Find some areas that have shade in it, and you might be surprised what might happen. You know, I get asked all the time, when do I use an offset shank hook like this, a straight shank type hook, versus a wide gap? Here's the deal. I'm Texas rigging today, but I'm Texas rigging with the real small bait like this right here, and you can see how thin in diameter it is, okay? Arizona Custom Baits, they make a real nice little creature bait there, but the thing is if you can see, it's really small in diameter. If I'm gonna throw something that thin, I'm gonna throw this straight shank type worm, this offset shank type worm hook. Now, if I had thicker plastic, if I'm using something really big, it's got thicker plastic on it, say something like this, that's when you go to the bigger bite hooks like this. And you'll get a much bigger bite in because you got to get through all that plastic to get to the fish. So if you're using a small thin worm, go with the offset shank hook just like this. If you're using something thicker, then go to the big wide gap hook. Okay, one thing really important when you're Texas rigging is, you know, we all get hung up a lot, and then you fill your line because you've been trained to fill your line and for nicks, for retying, and then you throw back out and you break off. Well, let me tell you something. There is one key thing you always have to watch for. Just because you think that weight is protecting your line, you're sadly mistaken. A lot of times when you get hung up, feel right under where the weight is. Right under where that weight's at is right about where you tie your knot is where you're gonna get a lot of your frays when you get hung up. It'll be right underneath your weight. So be sure that you always pull the weight up a little bit and feel the line right there. Feel for any nicks. If there is some, you're gonna have to break off and retie. But that's one thing that a lot of people do is they feel here and they go, oh wow, there's no nicks. But you gotta lift that weight up and feel underneath the weight, because that's normally where those nicks are, and that's where you're gonna break off. You know, there's a couple of different retrieves, basic retrieves that I really like with the Texas rig. And I know a lot of guys are like, there's retrieves for Texas rig? Well, you know, certain things I like to do. I'm gonna show just a couple of things that you can try when you're out there fishing. Everybody's got a different way of doing it, but this is the way a lot of times I'll take and throw my bait out there. I'll let it fall to the bottom. Once it hits bottom, I can do a pull drag, which is something that I wanna do most of the time. I like to do it. And that's where I just kinda get the slack on my bait and I feel it on the bottom, and I just I can count the rocks, just kinda pull it up over the rocks and then hop it over. Now, with that bead on there, another retrieve that you can do is, if you're in a little bit muddier water or things like that, when you finally hit the bottom, as you're lifting up, you can just kind of shake the bait across the bottom a little bit, make it do that ticking, tick, 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 and let it sit there. Sometimes they like it moving like that. The little tails and everything will just start acting up down there and really create a commotion down there that the fish like. There's other times they don't like that commotion. When it's real hot or real cold, a lot of times those fish like something just kind of sitting there dead sticking, and they get curious. They're curious creatures. So the two techniques that I like to do is to do the pull drag, and I'll just kind of pull it over. If I get into a lot of rocks, a lot of chunky rock where you constantly feel like you're getting hung up, I like to skip it across those rocks, and done very well doing that when the fish are active, to where you just throw it out there and you're in a bunch of chunk boulder rock where you know all those crawdads are. And what I'll do is, not real fast, but fast enough where when it hits bottom, I'll just kind of pull drag it across, and I'll pop it across the bottom just like that. Then I'll take up my slack, and then I'll keep popping it across the top of those rocks. Just pop it, pop it, pop it. And a lot of times they'll come up and just smack it if they're aggressive. So those are a couple of different kinds of retrieves you can throw with this Texas rig. Like I said, the slow drag, you can keep it still, but a lot of times, and then when you're pulling over a rock, instead of pulling it sideways like this, oh, I think I just got bit. Instead of pulling it sideways like that, I just like to pull it straight up. And there's one right there. Pulled it right over the rock while I was talking. And that's how you do it, son. I thought I just got bit popping it over that rock. They hang out on those big chunk rocks down there. Get up here. Oh, and he ate it. He ate the bait, just like that. I'll tell you what, that's how it works. And you saw the different techniques I used just in that one retrieve. Goes to show you that a lot of times there is no answer for it. You just make it happen. But once you find that type of retrieve that works, I was popping it up over that rock, and I felt that bite, and he liked it moving up on top of that rock. That clicking noise, everything just hit him right, and he ate it. He actually engulfed the whole bait. But that's how that works. I'll tell you something, there's no substitute for quality, and I've said that a million times. But these Taipan rods, one of the things I gotta tell you that I really love about them is the fact, and I'm gonna have to retie my baits on here. Come here. Is the fact that they have no fiberglass in them whatsoever. So they're really, really sensitive. You feel every little rock. You almost feel the indentions on top of the rocks as you're pulling your bait across. Really a sensitive rod, no fiberglass. Well, I've had a great time on Canyon Lake today. Pick up some Texas rig weed pigs is what they're called. It's called the weed pig. It's made by Arizona Custom Baits. It's awesome. I showed you how to flavor it up a little bit with that orange pin, and I'll tell you what, you'll have a lot of fun. Put that bead on there, it made the difference. We caught fish when fishing was tough right here at Canyon Lake, but there's still some beautiful quality fish in this lake. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next week. I'm Johnny Johnson. Now, see, that's what I'm talking about, folks.